welcome to the Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zack Eichten. Uh, let's get into it. This is going to be kind of a down and dirty week, so we're just going to hop right in and see where this improv takes us here. In game number 1 of the Week 9 recaps, we had the Gluten Freaks up against the Gruesome Grinders in their very pivotal battle in the G name category. So let's take a look at how these two teams up. First of all, Gruesome Grinders 105.08 to 89 on the money. The Gluten Freaks changed their name to the Gluten Frauds after this loss as they fall to 4-5, and the Gruesome Grinders rise to 4-5. So let's talk about the frauds first. Josh Allen, 36 points, finally scored over 20. Unfortunately, the rest of the team just really didn't get the memo. David Johnson exited with a concussion. Unknown if he will play in Week 10. He only scored 1.6 points before that. Josh Jacobs, 13 points, sort of the story of the year for him. Julio Jones didn't quite get everything he needed. He only had 7 targets. He only caught 5 of those. But he did get a touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins disappointing at 4.5. And Corey Davis scoring 0 points after 22-point performance in Week 8. But it doesn't matter because there was nobody on this bench that would have made up the difference in order to take over the Gruesome Grinders, who scored 105.08. Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill did their excellent, tag teaming up against the frauds here. 30.88 for Mahomes, 28.6 for Tyreek, which made up for some disappointing scores from Derrick Henry and David Montgomery, as well as Tyler Lockett, who had his second bust week in a row, getting only 6 points in Week 9 here. Jordan Reed only had 2 targets in his return back for San Francisco, but Chase Edmonds did fine. He scored about what you'd expect from a Carolina or Cardinals running back rather. Traded for player Tom Brady on the bench, scored 2.36 points. So something to keep an eye on moving forward if Brady has to be put into the lineup. So let's talk about game number 2 here, which was the roommate battle between Randy's Donuts and the Google team names. The names take the lead, go to 7-2, and have clinched a playoff spot going into the 2020 playoffs, and handing Noel a loss, moving him down to 4-5. So let's talk about Noel first. Ben Roethlisberger played fine, but he is going to be on the COVID list, and will be down there moving forward. Alvin Kamara just really had an okay game, 13.4 points. He got a touchdown, but with a blowout victory of 38-3 against Tampa Bay, you would have expected that to be higher. Christian McCaffrey came back, did excellent, exactly what you'd expect him to do, 32.1 points, but probably going to be out for the foreseeable future again with a shoulder injury. So too bad you couldn't get the win while he was in there. Mike Thomas, Sterling Shepard, Noah Fant, Cole Beasley, Rodrigo Blankenship, and the Buccaneers defense all scoring less than 10 points for this team. So let's talk about the Google team names. You guys know I'm a big names guy, huge names guy. Kyler Murray, highest quarterback score of the week at 37.92 points. Made up for a lot of just rather disappointing stuff from Melvin Gordon and Jonathan Taylor. Taylor getting a fumble on the day, moving him back below double digits. But again, as always, the receiving core here is fantastic. DK Metcalf with 20.3 points, and Will Fuller with 18.5, and Juju with 18.3. Simply fantastic, easily able to outpace the Randy's Donuts squad with these names receivers. Let's talk about game 3 then, where we had the Spring Chickens up against Not Trading Lamar. Brennan and the Chickens got 28.9 points from Aaron Rodgers, definitely better than the previous week. But the real story, of course, for the Spring Chickens, despite their loss here, is Dalvin Cook. 38.2 points. Amazing. Highest running back score of the week, 2 weeks in a row for Dalvin. Really amazing. But we got to talk about it. The goose eggs from Justin Jackson. Definitely a disappointing piece for this squad. But looking at who he had on the bench, there was really nobody else he could play here with Chris Carson being out. But let's talk about those receivers then, huh? Chase Claypool makes his debut over here, 11.3 points. Not bad, but when you're relying on Tampa Bay to really come through for you with 3 Tampa Bay players, but when you're relying on 3 Tampa Bay players to pull through for you, it's pretty disappointing to see Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, and Ryan Suckup here to really just not pull through. Additionally, the Patriots defense just got smacked by the Jets. It looks like somehow. I don't know how that happened. And Damian Harris exited with an injury early and was unable to retain the good pace that he was on before that injury. That brings Brennan up to a total score of 101.6 to not trading Lamar's 132.9. Josh, I can't tell. Are you on the fraud list? Are you not? I said you wouldn't lose another game after you lost to John, so I'm technically right, but I also still think you have some fraud potential, especially with Lamar Jackson doing just not as good this year. He was 19 for 23, 170 yards, 13 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. So that touchdown really saved his score there, because otherwise that would be a pretty gnarly score with only 170 yards through the air. James Robinson continues to be amazing. He's getting 25 carries a game, especially this week, exactly 25, 99 yards and a touchdown. Todd Gurley is, as touchdown dependent as he is, he's not very efficient, 19 carries for 53 yards, but if he gets a touchdown every week, that's an easy score right there. Terry McLaurin, when you just absolutely sniped him from Tony, I'm very jealous, scoring 21 points. AJ Brown, it was the AJ Brown show this week. He had 101 yards only on 4 receptions with a touchdown. Really incredible. And then Deontay Johnson, again, being healthy, scored 11 points. And then you're having some real good luck with that Buffalo defense. And I'm impressed that you still decided to play them against Seattle. So big win for Josh there in week 9. All right, let's talk about game number 4 then, where we had the Rock Plopstas up against Pelicans on a bench. Again, that is Pelicans on a bench. So let's talk about the Pelicans first. Tua Tagovailoa got 21.42 points in his second start. He had 2 touchdowns, 248 yards through the air. Really good score for the Miami rookie. Could be exciting to see him continue to develop, especially once he gets a good running back of Myles Gaskin back. RIP in pieces, Myles Gaskin. And RIP in pieces me while we're talking about it. But interesting strategy here from Pelicans on the bench of playing both Buffalo running backs. It's something is up there. Zach Moss is seeming to be the better running back option. He's getting more carries, even if he's not getting as many yards. As you might expect, he's averaging about 2 yards a carry, but he's getting touchdowns, and he's getting the receiving yards too, 30 yards on his 2 receptions. So 11.8 points for Zach Moss, and Devin Singletary just continues to have a very, very low floor and a pretty low ceiling this year. Adam Thielen in the win against Detroit. Again, it was a Dalvin Cook show. Just again, this week, as it was the previous week, only 4.8 points. Devontae Parker, fine. I mean, is it a Tyreek and Mahomes situation with Tua and Devontae? No. But it's still 9.4 points. It's not terrible. Jonnu Smith getting a 10.2 there. Trent Taylor, pretty disappointing. Only 1 reception on his 4 targets. But Younghoe Koo continues to be, the best number 1 kicker in the league. As his, if you look at his player profile, it says he was flawless in week 9, and he is flawless in real life as well. Still not good enough. Lowest score of the week for Pelicans on a bench up against the Rock Plopstas, who moved to 7-2 and clinch a playoff spot this week. Russell Wilson, pretty good. He had kind of a lot of turnovers, 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, kind of disappointing for him on that -8 points there, but still 22.1 points. Even despite that, very impressive score for Russell Wilson, 390 yards through the air. Jermichael Hasty, 2.3 points. He's now off the roster after a very disappointing performance against Green Bay. And then Antonio Gibson coming in to fill out that last running back spot. He had a fumble, but he had a touchdown as well. So 11 points, pretty good for the Washington rookie. The story, as always, sound like a broken record. Here is Devontae Adams, just absolutely dominating in Green Bay, 28.3 points up against San Francisco. And then just very, very solid tight end performance from Darren Waller again at 10.7. Aaron Jones, fine. He got 10 points. Not nothing to write home about for him, but definitely is good for John moving forward if that is Aaron Jones' worst performance of the year. So let's talk about then game number 5, our Pawn Stars game of the week. We had Thomas and the Dog Sniffers up against Tony Townsend and Worse Than Trash. Let's talk about it here. Tony's team first played his absolute perfect lineup, just wasn't quite good enough. 23.44 points from franchise quarterback Justin Herbert. 10.9 points from Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. He's the number 8 running back right now, ranked in PPR formats. But I will say that looking at just sort of his ceiling is that he has not broken 20 points yet this season, and his highest score came in week 1 against a pretty weak Houston defense. This past week, he was only on the field for 40% of snaps. He did get a touchdown through the air, which saved his score, but he only had 5 carries in the pretty close game against Carolina. So tough game script for him there. DeAndre Swift did fine. He's fine. Stephon Diggs, he did fine. Nothing really good about that to write home about. TJ Hawkinson continues to be a fantastic tight end, number 3 rather in PPR formats so far on the year. This past week, being on the field for 76% of snaps, his second highest of the year so far for that, and notching another touchdown against Minnesota. Marvin Jones, got a touchdown. Really the point of Tony's team is that very obviously in a rebuild year, a lot of young guys, and for what Tony's trying to do this year, looks like he will be able to do it. Let's talk about Thomas's team then, the Dog Sniffers. Deshaun Watson, 24.24 points. That's kind of neat. Good enough to get a win here at 119.74 points, despite very low running back scores. 3.3 from Ronald Jones, 3 from James Conner, but a twinned score from Keenan Allen and Christian Kirk, both at 20.8 points. That's very good. You got to give him the win on that. You would almost say there was a triplet there, but Travis Kelce just came out a little bit bigger and got 20.9 points. So again, Mark Andrews continues to be just kind of disappointing, and it's based off of the somewhat disappointing play of Lamar Jackson this year, getting only 3.7 points in their win over Indianapolis. Will Lutz, he's good, but the Baltimore Ravens defense continuing to dominate as the number 1 scoring fantasy defense this year, 15 points. All of this easily good enough to get the win for the Dog Sniffers. So that all said, a lot of great scores so far this year. I want to talk about those scores now throughout the year in our fun fact of the week. This week, the fun fact of the week is looking at the total score through 9 weeks in 2019 to 2020. So in 2019, we had through 9 weeks, our 10 teams had 10,153.06 points combined, combining the 10 scores through 9 weeks. In 2020, though, that score has risen to 10,332.58 points. That is a 101.8% score comparison. The percentage change there, we get a little bit 1.8% increase. And the difference there is about 179.52 points. So across the board, not only are our players better, but our fantasy management is improving based on the number of points that we have scored and are available throughout the week. So let's move on here. There's not really anything specific this week that I'm aware of. Oh, well, the hold minute. Now, I don't think there's anything else super specific that I'm aware of this week when I'm recording. But can we just go ahead and, anything that I want to put in later, we'll just put it in here. Great. Thanks, producer. Welcome back. If there was anything there, if not, hey, you're still here. Well, watch out. Right now, I'm going to pop up the rankings and then we'll get into the previews for week number 10. In game number 1, Brennan and the Spring Chickens up against Pelicans on a bench. That's right, Pelicans on a bench. We have Rogers versus Tagovailoa, Dalvin Cook versus Devin Singletary. Hopefully Chris Carson will be back. He has been out for a while, but he's looking to make his return up here in week 10 up against, it looks like, Zach Moss. And then also Brennan is hoping that Kenny Golladay is hopefully able to make it back. There's no guarantee of that he will return for week 10, but obviously those two pieces of Carson and Golladay are going to be key to give Brennan a victory over Pelicans on a bench here. There's really not a lot of wiggle room on the bench here either in the running back game. So with Damian Harris and Justin Jackson both being unpredictable scorers. But for Pelicans on a bench, I mean, really at this point, Lucas, we all know this. You're here to play a spoiler role if possible. And a win here pretty much guarantees that Brennan will not be able to make playoffs if you win against him. So, Tua up against the Los Angeles Chargers is a great matchup. Singletary and Zach Moss up against Arizona, not as much. But the biggest question mark is going to be Adam Thielen up against the Chicago defense on Monday Night Football. honestly not a great matchup to be relying on Thielen. He's the Chicago defense has held a lot of opposing receivers to pretty low scores. It's unknown if they'll be able to do that now. As well as Jonnu Smith, also potentially being held to a low score. It's looking like some pretty tough matchups. But the biggest piece that's going to be missing for this squad is Younghoe Koo, who is on bye. And honestly, if Koo was in there, I would say you had a better chance of winning, but he is not. So let's move on to game number 2 then, where we have Thomas and the Dog Sniffers up against not trading Lamar. So it's Deshaun Watson versus Lamar Jackson. Both absolutely have the potential to go off any week, but the matchups just aren't excellent this week. Going up against a Cleveland defense and a New England defense, they're pretty tough. It's going to be a battle of running backs in Tampa Bay, it looks like, between Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. Who's going to get more carries? Who knows? It's really up in the air so far. The battle of the Jameses in the second running spot between James Conner and James Robinson. James Conner up against Cincinnati, but James Robinson up against Green Bay. Both have led some big games against opposing running backs in the past. And then we have some really excellent looking receivers in Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk, up against A.J. Brown and Terry McLaurin. The biggest question is who will be in that tight end spot. We have Mark Andrews, we know, as Travis Kelce's on bye, up against who knows who will take the spot of Hayden Hurst, who's been the stalwart there for not trading Lamar. And then we have the Ravens defense up against the Bills defense. Ravens defense, number 1 on the league's season so far. Bills defense, about middle of the pack. So we'll just see. Nobody's quite got the edge on this one yet. In game number 3, we have the Rock Popses up against the Gruesome Grinders. Honestly, this could be a preview match for a playoff match. I anticipate. I'm thinking round 2. These two will be up against each other. But let's look at the matchup here. Drew is going to be without 2 of his top players in Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, as Kansas City is on bye, which means that the top receivers here are likely going to be Tyler Lockett and Marquise Brown, both known as absolute boom or bust players. We'll see if they're able to take on the just amazing duo of Devontae Adams and Allen Robinson. Darren Waller in that tight end spot up against Dallas Goedert, who's no longer Dallas on bye. We'll see who's able to take that down. But the real exciting piece of this matchup is going to be the running backs. Aaron Jones projected very well against Jacksonville. Derrick Henry up against Indianapolis, which is a much tougher matchup. Miles Sanders up against Chase Edmonds, and then the potential return of a Cleveland running back committee with Kareem Hunt in this flex spot for Drew and Nick Chubb currently in the flex spot for John. We really don't know if Nick Chubb is going to play yet when I'm recording this, so we'll see which one of those 2 running backs is able to get the edge for their team. Really an exciting thing here. So let's talk about game number 4 then, where we have Randy's Donuts up against Worse Than Trash. Earlier this year, Worse Than Trash was able to get their first win of the season against Randy's Donuts in week 1. So let's talk about them here. I would say that Worse Than Trash has a better quarterback situation now than Randy's Donuts with Justin Herbert as opposed to Ryan Tannehill. But everywhere else, it's really coming up the donuts here. Kamara versus Swift, I'm taking Kamara. Mixon, if he plays, versus Dobbins, I'm taking Mixon. Mike Thomas versus Stephon, I'm taking Mike Thomas. And then Fulgham versus Jefferson, I'm probably taking Fulgham just due to that that higher floor, even if Jefferson has a higher ceiling. Hawkinson, though, I mean, I would take Hawkinson over Fant, especially up against a Washington football team. Who knows how well they're going to do. Noah Fant also potentially injured. two just interesting choices in at flex while I'm looking at this right now: Jarvis Landry and Marvin Jones, and then of course Rodrigo Blankenship, amazing. Buccaneers, amazing. Love those guys. Definitely not salty. They beat me a few weeks ago, and it's really coming up null. But with McCaffrey hurt, Tony Pollard on bye, and then really having a pretty empty rest of the squad here. If any of those players that have been injured in the past are injured for null moving forward, well, he's going to have a tough time finding enough depth to really take down Tony here. So now let's talk about the Pawn Stars game of the week. Gluten frauds and the Google team names. Man, we've gotten into must-win mode for a lot of teams here. For the gluten frauds, for Randy's Donuts, for the gruesome grinders, all of these games moving forward, the spring chickens are must-win games in order to really stay alive for the playoff hunt. So this week, we're hopefully going to have a really good matchup between a team that's already made playoffs and a team that desperately needs to. The Gluten Frauds will be relying on Josh Allen up against Arizona. He's king fraud, honestly, on this team, getting either 36 points or 15. Hopefully, it's a 36-point week. But then the real question for this Gluten Frauds team is running back position right now. Coming into the season, it seemed they had the best step, but now with David Johnson, Myles Gaskin, and Austin Eckler all injured or on injured reserve, the only other healthy running back besides Josh Jacobs is J.D. McKissick. Wonderful. Really great depth there. With Julio Jones out this week on bye, it falls to Cooper Kupp to fill in that spot with DeAndre Hopkins, which means that the likely flex player here will be John Brown, who did score pretty well last week, but has had some injury issues coming into this season. It's not looking good for the frauds this year. Let's just say that. So let's talk about the Google team names then. Kyler Murray, fantastic. He's coming off his best week of the season. He's going up against Buffalo. So really it is a quarterback battle between Josh Allen and Kyler Murray. Running backs, questionable for this names team, of course, just like it's questionable for the Gluten Frauds. Melvin Gordon and Jonathan Taylor, who knows if they'll be able to have a good production or not. But last week it was, hope and pray Tyler Lockett doesn't get any targets from Russell Wilson. This week, of course, for the frauds, it is hope that DK Metcalf doesn't get any targets from Russell Wilson. Go Tyler. We wish you the best over there on the Gruesome Grinders team. Will Fuller, Evan Ingram, Juju Smith-Schuster all have really excellent potential here. It's just a matter of execution. Will Fuller probably will be able to. Juju and Evan Ingram, we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, Justin Tucker, my favorite kicker in the league. He is just automatic and the number 3 kicker for fantasy points on the year. He should be excellent as well. So now let's head on over to the Pawn Stars Pick'em. Welcome, folks, to this week's episode of the Pawn Stars Pick'em. Thank you to the Pick'em players here with me today. We got John, Sam, Noel, and Thomas here playing this week. And Drew's picks will be at the bottom with everybody's while we go through this. Let's talk about game number 1 here, where we have the bird matchup, the Spring Chickens versus Pelicans on a bench. That's right, Pelicans on a bench.
A bench. All right. So let's talk about these guys. Let's have John go first on this one. John, who do you got between the Chickens and Pelicans on the bench?
I am taking the Spring Chickens, but I think it might be a close match, actually.
Okay. All right. Samuel, who you got?
I have got Brennan and the Spring Chickens, and they are my lock this week.
Risky.
No, it's going to be big. Big.
Huge.
Hold on,
Spring
we need to reword that. It's got to be huge.
Huge.
Oh, wait, not anymore.
Wait,
We
it's not
can't say
narrow.
that anymore.
Sad.
Spring
All right.
Chickens, big.
All right, Noel, who do you got in this matchup?
Yeah, Lucas has got both of the Bills running backs in this week, so I'm going with the Spring Chickens with my lock.
He had that strat last week. It almost worked for him.
Yeah. Let's go with Thomas then.
You know what? I've got to go against the grain here. I've got Pelicans on a bench, and they are my lock. And that is going to be because if any team other than Pelicans on a bench has showed us they can score 60 points in a week, it's the Spring Chickens.
It's
That is
true.
very
Ooh,
accurate.
good.
That is very accurate. I'm taking the Spring Chickens. No question.
Also, maybe Dalvin won't go off for like 40 points this week. And then Brennan's really in trouble.
Well, yeah. Then he's toast. All right, let's talk about game number 2 then, where we have Thomas and the Dog Sniffers up against Josh and Not Trading Lamar. And we'll start with John again this time.
I'm taking the Dog Sniffers.
Risky. All right, Samuel, who you got?
I am also going to take Thomas and the Dog Sniffers.
All right, Noel.
As much as I like saying the dog sniffers, I got to go with Not Trading Lamar in this one.
All right, Thomas, in your own matchup.
I'm going to go with myself here. I think this one's going to be a close one. Honestly, it's a toss-up.
It's definitely a toss-up, but I did stand or say that Josh would not lose another week after he lost to Josh. Then I bet against him and he won, so I'm still right, and I'm going to go with Josh again this week. It's all big brain moves from me over here. Let's move on to game number 3 then, where we have the Rock Plopsters up against the Gruesome Grinders. John, in your own matchup.
I think I got lucky here, drawing Drew as a matchup when Mahomes and Tyreek Hill are out on bye. So I'm going to take myself, the Rock Plopsters. Although I do feel like I could win this matchup even if Drew's team was at full power.
Samuel, who you got?
I have got the upset of Drew and the Gruesome Grinders narrowly beating John and the Rock Plopsters.
All right, Noel.
I got the Rock Plopsters this week.
And Tomas.
I was going to go with the Gruesome Grinders, but upon closer inspection of the players on both teams playing this week, I think the Rock Plopsters definitely going to run away with this one. So we got the Rock Plopsters to win.
Oh, it's going to be a Rock Plopsters from me as well. The Rock Plopsters got it going on. Very obviously a number 1 seed, or number 2.
Whoa, controversial.
Very
5.14, man. Come on.
Very clearly the better team by 0.14 points.
By 0.14
Narrowly.
points, but
Narrowly.
taking a holistic approach here. All right, let's talk about game number. What are we on? Game number 4 then, where we have the rematch of the first and last place teams from last year in regular season between Randy's Donuts and Worse Than Trash. John, we'll start with you here.
I am taking Randy's Donuts, and it is my lock because Tony's team sucks.
They are worse than trash. All right, Sam, what do you got?
I have got Noel and the Randy's Donuts this week.
Noel?
Yeah, let's go with myself.
Not going against the grain.
Very confident there. All right.
Somebody's gonna get injured again this week.
Probably.
McCaffrey already did.
Yeah, no kidding. Thomas, who you got?
I got Randy's Donuts, and I think Noel's team is going to do very well this week. I think it's going to be a blowout.
No, thank
Give
you.
it a point value. Over what?
Yeah.
Oof. 250.
Big week.
Thomas,
Right.
I'm hoping you're a blessing. Prohibits injuries on my team this week, so thank you.
All right, I'm taking Randy's Donuts, and they are going to score at least 10 points this week. So that is my prediction. And they're on the block this week. Let's talk about the game of the week then. Pawn Stars game of the week between Sam and Zach, the Google team names, versus the Gluten Frauds, newly renamed after last week's loss. And John, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Last week, I think it was, I tried to pick against Sam to try to manifest a win or a loss for his team because I want to be the sole possessor of the best record, and I'm going to try that strategy again this week. So I'm going to roll with the Gluten Frauds. Don't know how I feel about the name change, but it might work. Hopefully, it works for my case.
Sam, who you got in your matchup here?
I'm going to keep rolling with myself. I got the Google team names.
All right. Nolsif, who you got?
Yep. I think I picked against Sam a lot this year, but I've been wrong a lot, and so I got Sam.
Same.
Fair enough. Tomas, who you got?
Gluten Freaks, hard to trust in week 10 Google team names to win. Gluten Fraud, sorry.
Wait, who do you got?
The Gluten Frauds are hard to trust in week 10. I think I said Gluten Freaks.
Yes.
Google
So
team names to win. My pick.
Sam. All right. Sorry.
You're picking the Gluten Frauds.
Pause. Wait. No, I'm picking the Gluten Frauds. I have to start winning. I have to have some confidence in myself. This is the week we get back on track. Well, this is going to lead into our bonus question, though, and it's going to be a fun one for all of us here. So, it is a two parts here to this question. Both need to be true for a yes vote. All right. Will Josh Allen score 25 points, and will the Gluten Frauds score over 100 points at the same time? John?
Josh Allen over 25, you said?
Josh Allen over 25 and the Gluten Frauds over 100. Will that happen? John, over to you.
I'm going to go with yes. I think Josh Allen, proved last week that he kind of could get his mojo back against the Seahawks. Absolutely trash secondary, but I think he'll move forward with those good memories and put up a really solid performance again this week.
All right, Sam.
I'm going to go with no, and it's not that you're not going to score 100 points. I don't think Josh Allen will have 25. He'll be in the low 20s, high teens, but I don't think he gets 25.
Fair enough. Noel, who do you got?
Damn it, I couldn't keep a straight face. Yes.
Wow. All right. Good to know. And then
Where'd your eyes go?
Yeah.
Jesus.
That was scary.
That was very frightening.
You're doing the Drew stick your eyeball in the camera thing?
Yeah. It's scarier when Drew does it, though, because the rest of his room is just completely black. The only illumination is from his computer screen, so it's just all right, Thomas. Will Josh Allen break 25 points and the Gluten Frauds top 100 in the same week?
No, and I'm going to tell you my prediction. Josh Allen, 24.8. Gluten Freaks, 101.4.
That would kill me. That would crush me in my soul if that occurred. I think yes.
As long as the Google team name says 100.
Josh Allen's got what it takes. He's going for 38, and the Gluten Frauds are going for 146.08 points this week.
I remember when I had a quarterback who could score that much. Then he snapped his leg in half.
It's just his ankle. I don't know.
I don't know so much that he did it.
True. Yeah, true.
All right. That's all we got this week, folks.
On time.
Scores real quick. We have sort them real quick. Drew at 29 points. We have tied with that is, I don't know what I just did. Sorry.
Words.
Words.
Right. Drew's at 29 and Sam is at 29. Noel is at 28. Zach is at 25. John 24 and Thomas 20.
This doesn't work with the real mustache.
Not last place.
Yeah. No.
I am last place.
Yeah,
Hey, that
definitely.
lock of Lucas is gonna put you.
That's
ahead.
what's gonna take me ahead here.
Wait. Beans. Geez.
Yep.
I'm sorry, gang. Ooh, that's not right.
Was that last week?
It wasn't that last week.
Oh gosh, what happened?
Oh, geez.
Oh, geez.
All right, redo.
Oh, geez, Rick.
35 points. Sam in first place. 34 points for Drew. 32 for Noel. 29 tie for Zach and Thomas, and then 28 for John.
John is last place.
Been bamboozled.
Yeah, that was a big.
Hey, that lock for Noel though, it's gonna take you forward here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lock
yeah.
for Lucas.
Yeah,
Probably not your
smart
best
guy.
strategy.
Smart guy, Thomas. I'm
All right,
coming for you.
That's all we have, folks. All right, we'll see you next week, and thanks for playing, boys.
All right, welcome back, folks. That is all we have for this week on the Rathole. I am your host, Commissioner Zack Eichten, and thank you for voting.